so plain and precious. Finally, the Book of Mormon is the keystone of testimony. Just as the arch crumbles if the keystone is removed, so does all the church stand or fall with the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. The enemies of the church understand this clearly.
This is not the Church of Emmanuel, Christ of Latter-day Saints, of Joseph Smith. This is the Church of Jesus Christ.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is losing a record number of its membership.
The Salt Lake Tribune just, a couple of years ago said it was still 60%.
The study from Utah Tech University, the University of Tampa, and the University of North Florida found 42% of Utahns self-identify as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Anybody who gets baptized into the church, they're officially a member. And unless they formally resign, they keep them on the records until they're 110 years old and they can't find them, right? Which is kind of interesting. So what that means, and we actually show this in the paper, is that there are probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people in the state of Utah who the church still considers members of the church because they haven't formally resigned, but those people no longer self-identify as members of the church.
That's right. More people are no longer self-identifying as a Latter-day Saint or a Mormon. They attribute the dramatic drop to several factors: secularization, migration, and a drop in the birth rate. You may start to see the church's influence wane in the public square.
When it comes to them weighing in on important political topics of the day, that's where I think more immediately you're going to see some effects, where it's going to matter less what they say. 89% of the elected officials in the Utah State Legislature identify as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So whether the body politic does or not is irrelevant. The effect will be felt in the laws that we see coming out of the legislature as a result of that identity.
Oh, Travis Wayne Goodsell. It's extremely quiet this morning than normal. And I see the YouTube videos are also tanking as of midnight. In the news, they are daily reporting about the war against Israel, but they do not word it that way. They instead talk about the crisis of humanitarian crisis of not getting aid to the Gazans. They talk about the Gazans who are interviewed about the destruction of their home and of the attacks, as they call it, by Israel. And you can compare and contrast with Putin's war against Ukraine that's still going on. As I started to do the videos about what happened to the war in Ukraine. Is it over? And then all of a sudden the news starts reporting about the Ukraine war again. And it's unfortunate that the news has been taken over by Islam, so that there's a bias to disguise and cover up and deceive those who watch the various channels about what's really going on. And if I were to be a news channel, and instead of talking about the plight of the Palestinians, replace Palestinian, Gazan, Islamist, all over the world with whatever the news is talking about, and plug in extremist Hamas terrorist. Do you see how that changes a person's view when they watch the news? So, for example, extreme Hamas terrorists hidden in refugee camp, hidden in a hospital, hidden in local community. Extreme Hamas terrorists protest at University of Utah, or any other Harvard or Yale, Princeton. Do you see how that changes the news story? And so the press has guaranteed freedom of the press in the First Amendment of the Constitution, Bill of Rights, does not allow for biased press reporting. Because by turning it on Israel, the press is now inciting violence and hatred towards the Israelis who are victims in this war. Just because they're kicking butt with self-defense doesn't mean they're now guilty of crime, that they're now guilty of terrorism. It's self-defense. But a simple little changing of the words and your whole viewpoint is different. Okay? There's the intro. On with the video. In 1982, President Spencer W. Kimball stopped the presses. They had just finished the Quad with the new footnoting, with the Bible dictionary, topical guide, and indexing for Mormons to study their scriptures. Yes, Mormons, you once were told to study your scriptures. It would be a decade later when the church would come out and say, don't study your scriptures, you're going to become apostate. You're going to become Korahor, Antichrist, anti-Mormons. With September 6. And he simply had one change to be made that stopped all the print pressing and have them all scrapped. All the storage supplies in the distribution center warehouse downtown had to be thrown away, and the new printing had to be made with a simple subtitle to the Book of Mormon: Another Testament of Jesus Christ. And as a result of that being the subtitle, the church purposely wanted to lead the narrative for Mormons about the Book of Mormon, which we all know and understand is our keystone. Benson would go on to discuss this in great detail. But again, remember my intro. Another testament of Jesus Christ is not the same as 1 Nephi chapter 1 verse 2, right here at the beginning of the Book of Mormon. Do you see what Kimball did? He put a new subtitle in before you read this, so that your mind is already biased to what Kimball wants you to interpret the Book of Mormon as. The footnotes were already compromised, as I've been going over with you all these years, because I had a direct impact in the re-footnoting process. But the learning of the Jews isn't about Christianity interpretation. It's not about Jesus as the Christ. To claim so would be what's called anti-Semitism, where you replace the Jews, you replace the Jewish religion, you replace the Jewish interpretation of Scripture, and you replace the Jewish Christ. Islam pulled the same stunt with Muhammad. When you do something like that and you claim to be from the religion you usurped and altered, it automatically means you're not true. You're a fraud. You're a con man posing as a religious leader. And so yes, Spencer W. Kimball, in making this change, revealed that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is officially a fraud, even though it should have been known earlier. But this is why they do not footnote it. This is why certain passages of Joseph Smith's and in the Book of Mormon are not footnoted to other passages in the Bible or Book of Mormon or Joseph Smith. Bruce R. McConkie was purposely put in charge of that, to hide and cover up what the church did not want Mormons to find out in their study. Avraham Gileadi was in charge of the Hebrew footnotes. And where you see an OR or an IE in the Old Testament, that's where the church said, no, you're wrong, we're not putting that in there. And we were told to remove those, as they had a BYU group that worked on revision, if necessary, of Hebrew and Greek footnoting, which I don't even think they even bothered to do any changes. But I sure recommended a whole bunch, even some Egyptian footnotes to have put in. Nope, wouldn't do it. It is this one passage at the beginning of the Book of Mormon, which is the keystone of Mormonism, that if we remove this, the Book of Mormon falls. Well, that's exactly what Spencer W. Kimball did. He removed it by replacing it with another testament of Jesus Christ. The Book of Mormon falls as Christian with Jesus. And yet Benson goes on to talk about, when he's the president, how the Book of Mormon causes the church to stand or fall based upon its truthfulness. And it's therefore not true. They know this, and yet they're saying it. And yet Mormons are still gullible. But the news last night revealed a super sacred secret that I've been warning you about. That it's not enough to leave the church. You have to leave the state of Utah. The prophets have deemed Mormons wicked and thus unworthy of Zion. That's why they polluted Utah. That's why they've abused Utahns, both economically, spiritually, physically. That's why we're authoritarian with our government. That's why we keep wanting to secede from the nation. Why we want to overthrow the government, the federal government. But the news last night confirmed what I've been trying to warn you about. But they had no clue what they were talking about, because they were talking to sociologists. Sociologists were able to get some factual information out, but then threw in speculative conclusions based on the small sampling of stats. A couple years ago, they claim it was reported that there were about 62% Mormons in Utah. Something like that. And now it's down to 42% Mormons who identify as Mormon. Now, this is problematic because it's a poll. You can't rely on polls because it's a small sampling. And that's a fallacy argument. You can't use that for a conclusion as a part of your premise. It nullifies your conclusion before you even begin. And polls are usually done so that the press can manipulate their audience. 97% of Americans believe that Biden sucks and should hand over the government to Trump. You can see that the press has got an agenda. And that it's not based on reality. Because our presidential elections are a real count of the voice of the people, assuming that they don't get suppressed from voting. But the votes that do get counted are an actual count. It's not speculation or opinion anymore. It is not a poll. And it represents a more accurate accounting of the mind and will of the people. Even those who don't get counted. Because there's always more people who don't vote than there is in the populace. And that is in and of itself a vote for none of the above, which we do need to implement. Like Brewster's Millions. But they were trying to claim that because of the minority of Mormons now in Utah, that this would nullify the voice of the church. And yet the one woman said no, because 98% of the legislature is Mormon. And they have a Danite as governor. And then that's not to talk about the judicial system and the federal courts here in Utah, and the attorney generals. This is what the sociologists are not factoring in, is that the church already made sure to protect themselves when they purposely caused the lack of Mormons. I've been warning you, the church is purposely weeding out Mormons who will not obey them. And they're preparing for the burning. Did you honestly not think that the scriptures are to be considered legitimately real? That the field is white, all ready to be burned. The separation of the sheep and the goats, the wheat from the tares. You seriously not even understand parables? Because the Jesus character says that he speaks in parables because people are stupid. But if Mormons can't even understand the parables, oh man. No wonder they don't understand the prophecies in the Book of Mormon. And so the church is protecting themselves to maintain their authority in the state of Utah. It's going to be Zion. That's what they want. That's what they're pushing for. But they need to separate out the weak. That's why they've been doing this porn social media kick, is to get a blacklist of those who are loyal versus those who are not loyal. And all of this is purposely planned and designed. When Nelson came out and said we've rigged the algorithms in the search engines, that was for Zion. When they have little kids going out on missions who have no clue about the Mormonism or the church history, they do that on purpose. They teach feelings to manipulate other people's feelings into joining the church and paying the money to the church, which has been exposed now since 2019's whistleblower as hoarding a gabillion amount of money, quadrillion, as it's all for the latter days, to cause Armageddon, the burning. And they've had to do lots of different ways of doing this. But this is why they've separated the weak Mormons out, as they refer to you as, and have made the change now, after Thanksgiving, that as long as you're paying the church any amount of money, you're a participant. Though the sociologists did recognize that Mormons are considered Mormon just simply because they have a membership record. And even though they've quit the church hasn't quit them. Church won't let us go. I'm one of those people. Church will not leave us alone. We leave the church, but the church won't let us leave. And that's a twist on the abusive Mormons who say you can leave the church, but you can't leave the church alone. Yeah, sorry. You're the one who's a brainwashed puppet for the church. And so when you realize that the church is not what the Book of Mormon says it's supposed to be, what Joseph Smith says it's supposed to be, that they are brazen enough to release the Joseph Smith papers, fully confident that Mormons will never look at them. And if they do look at them, they're not going to study them to notice the differences that the Brighamite Church has made. They don't want you to know certain things. And this is it. Because when you know that this church is not Jewish, everything else doesn't matter. The church is wrong. The church claims that Joseph Smith was Christian. Well, they're wrong. The church claims the Book of Mormon is Christian. That's wrong. It's not another testament of Jesus Christ. The living prophet of Jesus. Wrong. Which means no Jesus. This isn't a situation where the Jewish Christ is real and the Christian Christ is real, and it's a war to see who can dominate the other as to who wins. And Brigham Young won because he murdered Joseph Smith. It's not how it works. Even though that's been the historical practice around the world. My God's better than your God because we conquered you. And looking at a rock and a hat. Well, who told us this? This church did. Martin Harris did. Can't trust them. Because of this one passage. Joseph Smith was a polygamist. Who said? This church. Can't trust them. Now you can identify the forged documents. Claiming that the Book of Mormon is literal history. Nope. Can't trust them. It's not the learning of the Jews. That they speak for Jesus. Not the learning of the Jews. The manuals for the Book of Mormon next year. Nope. Can't rely on it. It's a trick. It's a con. It's a fraud. For Strength of the Youth pamphlet. Nope. Fraud. Their claim that pornography is addictive and harmful. Wrong. See where we're going? Everything has to be reevaluated by Mormons who leave the church. Not just by Mormons to leave the church. Everything cannot be trusted. The whole church has to be reevaluated. And I am the only person on the face of the whole earth who did the research and found out the truth. My videos are exclusive. There are only 2 people that I found who are doing YouTube videos about how the Book of Mormon is Kabbalah. But they don't know the bigger context. They don't know the cause with church history. And I'm willing to bet they're still trying to merge Christian and Jewish Kabbalah together like Abraham did. You have to fully separate yourself from what's corrupt. Get rid of the weeds. Get rid of the tares. Get rid of the goats. See, the church wants the goats, wants the tares. Because they're loyal. They pay. But the rest of you are in great danger now. Because the church has pulled the Isaiah, calling good evil and evil good, so that they can justify sacrificing you to restore the church. That's pretty much it. And I can go over the scriptures talking about how it's plain and precious, but you're looking beyond the mark if you alter the meaning of what it means to be Jewish in religion, how they interpreted the scriptures, who their Christ is. Wording changes interpretation. that would be for comment reply video. So, yeah, I think we're done. Church ain't true, Mormons. Quit living in denial. Quit attacking me, because you're not going to change me. And you clearly can't let me go to freely expose the church. You expose yourself as stupid. Same with you, critics. You know, it's great that you left the church, but you clearly didn't learn that the church was lying to you. Every single critical channel has those topics that they are perpetuating Brigham Young's lie. And unfortunately, you're popular, getting lots of people to believe you. Because it's not a debate over whether it's a good thing that it's not literal history versus a bad thing that it's not literal history. It's a false dichotomy argument because neither of them are correct. It's the learning of the Jews. That's why there are cows. That's why the late war is in here. That's why the 1769 King James Version of the Bible, errors and all, are in here. That's why Jewish Kabbalah is in here. That's why York Rites Freemasonry is in here. To distinguish from Scottish Rites. But even people in the world have been fooled into merging the two of them together. Nobody knows but me. I'm the one who revealed it. If other people are talking about it, it's because they came to one of my videos that exposed it. I figured it out. 9/11, 1826 in Canandaigua, New York. The birthplace of the Book of Mormon. I did the research. That's why the church wants Mormons to read, ponder, and pray and get the right feeling. Critics got the wrong feeling, and so they bash each other over their feelings. Go get some ice cream and watch a chick flick. I prefer Die Hard for my chick flicks. But I do need to get some ice cream. And another box of Kleenex. There's a reason why the Book of Mormon warns you about this. Not just leave the church, you gotta leave Utah. Those who want to build Zion must leave Utah. So we'll finish off with a couple of comments. Stanford followed up on a comment he made yesterday, talking about Martin Wolf, who describes the lack of economic theory during the feudal society periods because the kings and aristocrats had no interest in a GDP because they took the surplus of the people. And so yes, section 119, Brigham Young, forged document, remember, has priestcraft and takes the surplus property of Mormons. They're going to implement Zion this way. They're going to implement child bride polygamy. Nelson already set it up. Mormons aren't obeying. That's why Mormons are going to become martyrs for the church. It's just, this is the danger of not understanding what the church is up to. And then one final one, as James and Jasmine's comment will be for a different topic. with some added information from the news last night. Gladys Barra on why are Mormons choosing death than going to Zion. And so Gladys, whose thumbnail has pretty purple flowers, what will happen to your millennial Zion when you die? Well, there will be no millennial Zion, Gladys. Mormons aren't listening. Critics aren't listening. There's nobody going. I keep talking about my concerns that the Book of Mormon warns about. The utter destruction of Mormons. Both Ether and Moroni wander the earth because everybody's dead. Because they didn't listen. And so I've wanted to teach people how to build Zion. I've published even the economy for Zion, how to build it, the governmental structure, the societal structure, the judicial structure. I've already got it all designed, but I can't get people to believe that the Book of Mormon is the learning of the Jews. And so I can't go beyond this. I am stuck because of Mormons' wickedness and unbelief. I get dumbasses like you who attack me and mock me, who want the church's abuse of authoritarianism. And you don't want it, Gladys. It's not going to be good for you. But this is why they manipulate your feelings. So that when you're being abused, you're supposed to thank Jesus. You got the wrong feeling. You're supposed to give everything to us. You need to be happy about it. You need to let your husband bang all these other young girls. You need to be happy about it. You have no clue what you are doing to me when you defend the church. And so she continues, who will rule in your stead? Again, there's no Zion. I'm not a king. And you didn't listen to any of the videos where I said I have no intention of being a king. You did not hear what my government plans are. No king, la 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 la. See, even Nephi tells us he didn't want to be a king, but the people forced him to be a king. Mosiah gave up the kingdom to establish a constitutional republic. Ta-da! Everybody assumes the worst when it's not their belief system. A constitutional republic works. It just has to be followed. America has chosen not to follow our Constitution, and thus America has fallen. Even if you live to 100, there will still remain 950 years. You're assuming that there's a 1,000-year millennium. That's what it means. How long was the millennium in the Book of Mormon? Not even 200 years. And wickedness began again. I always wondered about that. If this is a pattern of the latter days with the millennium, why is it not 1,000 years? What is your process for an orderly succession? Again, the government is not about a kingdom. It's not about a Republican authoritarianism. It's not even a democracy. Dear God, no. It's the worst form of government. And so thus no communism or socialism either. A constitutional republic. And with the technology that we have, we don't need human judges. It would be based upon the Constitution. It's real simple. And those who refuse to live in Zion get booted out. If you take away the rights of life, liberty, and property of other people, you're out. You don't want to live here, so get out. It's that simple. But you are deceived by our fallen government and its corruption in the system. You see people who get wrongfully arrested. The West Jordan woman who was arrested for being naked in her hotel room. They now have the video of it. No nudity. But yes, by being arrested, people's lives are destroyed. They've not been judged. They were just accused, and already lives are destroyed. And so yes, a teaser for the next video, comment reply. Joe Go, the chancellor at the university, or wherever, who got fired because they found out he and his wife were doing porn. His life is ruined. For doing what? What was the crime? The Supreme Court has established as precedent for the First Amendment. If it is educational, if it is scientific, if it is artistic, it's not obscene, it's not porn. You got to let it go. You can't punish people for it. There is no crime. And yet, he was fired. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints keeps pushing to ban in Utah. I tried to find his videos. I can only find Pornhub, at least claiming they had him. But Pornhub is still banning Utah because of that law that was overturned by Texas. And so then Utah, under orders of the church, went after social media. This is the evil of the church. And the church owns stock in Google, and thus Google, by owning YouTube, has a controlling interest to appease to their shareholders. And the church and other evangelicals can clearly be seen influencing YouTube content, banning YouTube content. And YouTube can't do that. As long as people are not taking away the rights of life, liberty, and property. And so thus you can't have snuff films or gang rapes. But if this Joe guy and his wife want to do YouTube videos of their sexual exploitation, great. YouTube can be designed to accommodate it so that those of you, like Gladys, I'm pretty sure, doesn't want to watch it. She won't ever see it. YouTube has the capability of letting us choose what we want to subscribe to, thus watch, and choose what to have recommended to us. But YouTube will not do it because of the money ordering them how to design it. And thus why we have commercials on the videos we watch rather than going to the commercial company channel on YouTube. YouTube can do it. Social media can do it. They just won't. They don't want to adhere to the Constitution and the Supreme Court precedent. Social media is an enemy of the people because of the money that controls it. The Church of Jesus Christ is the money. They are the enemy of the nation. They are controlling YouTube content. And thus why the newest law that takes effect in March is to create a blacklist of YouTube viewers and creators so that the church will know who is on the church's side and who isn't. And so there will be no orderly succession. It's a constitution. It can last forever. And as long as nobody rises up to deceive people in overthrowing the Constitution, it can last forever. And everybody would prosper. Because everybody has rights to life, liberty, and property. It's a simple system. It can be done. But the question is, will the enemy allow it? So, I will allow it because you're not actually attacking me per se, but you are wording things on the borderline here, Gladys.